Emma Frame here, and welcome to Voices of Yoga podcast, co-hosted with Lindsay Porter, where we bring you inspiring yoga stories and insights from yogis and teachers from around the world. These stories highlight the benefits of yoga and encourage those who maybe haven't started yoga yet to get started, and for the more experienced to delve deeper. We hope you enjoy.
So namaste and welcome everybody. I'm Lindsay Porter of Voices of Yoga podcast, the podcast series. And it's always a delight. It's exciting and humbling to interview people from around the world, people that have yoga in their lives in some way and capacity, and to just really share their story and what inspires them and helps give us all inspiration, which I think is really important at this time with everything else going on in the world. So I'm delighted today. I'm going to be interviewing a man who was based in New York City until recently and has now moved to Arizona. So he'll tell us more about that. His name is Grant Henry, and Grant spends his life mostly photographing, videoing, and has a big connection. He's engaged to a yoga teacher, but a lot of his work is around photographing yogis. So lots for us to explore for him today. He has recently published a book, which he did through crowdfunding, called My Yoga, My City. So it's going to be really interesting to find out more about that. So let me introduce you to Grant just now. So welcome, Grant. Welcome to Voices of Yoga.
Hi. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Nice to have you on the show today.
Yeah.
So, could you start off with just maybe giving us a highlight, some information about how you've come in and across the world of yoga in your life so far?
Yeah, of course. So I started practicing about 7 or 8 years ago in Arizona, which is where you had mentioned where I'm living now. I moved to New York City to go to graduate school at NYU. And during that time, I have another passion working in kids media and whatnot that we could talk about as well. But I was working on a children's television show focused around yoga. And so as I was doing that during my thesis, my thesis advisor said, you should become an expert when you start pitching the show. So she suggested that I go to teacher training. So I went through the 200-hour, and it really changed my life. That you talk to a lot of yogis who have went through that, whether they're teaching or not, just meeting all these amazing people, putting you in these situations that you've never been put into before, or you've avoided, talking in front of a room of 50 people saying Sanskrit and words you can't even pronounce. It was something that really jump-started, in a deeper love for yoga. I ended up going through a mentorship program at a studio called Yoga Vida in New York City. And during that time, a lot of the teachers who I was working with, they needed photos for social media, for websites and whatnot. And I had sort of dabbled in photography. I had a educational background in film. And I said, sort of give it a shot. And this was about 3 to 4 years ago. I still remember my first yoga photo shoot, and I look at those photos and it's painful to see those, but you learn as you grow on. But yeah, I started taking photos. I started following some famous yoga photographers. It's a niche. That it's something that you can be an amazing photographer, but if you don't understand yoga, you don't understand the asana, you don't understand just the technical side of it, you could take a beautiful photo, but a teacher could not, they couldn't use it for their, if they're trying to apply for a studio or their knees past 90 degrees and Warrior Two, stuff like that. But yeah, so it was something that sort of came out of nowhere. Like I never thought I would be taking yoga photos. I've had the privilege to travel the world and go on retreats, and many. I didn't even have a passport until about 3 years ago. But just being able to take these photos to meet so many amazing people, including my fiance, who I met at the yoga studio where I did my training. So.
Fabulous. And I always find it so interesting hearing people's stories. Yoga has this way of like weaving itself into all of our lives, really. And just as you described there, suddenly taking you off into this tangent that you never really thought about or imagined. But there you go. It's sort of unfolded into this amazing journey, and you've met people and really special people on that journey.
Right. It really, yoga, I will admit that I was when I first started practicing, I was very adverse to it. Being, especially in Arizona, you didn't see a lot of men practicing yoga. And someone that I went to high school with, I saw that he went through teacher training, and he just like, all right, well, if he can do it, then I can. But it was something that once I started doing it, again, it's not about the asana, it's the breathing. Like I suffer from a chronic illness that's a stress related disease, and it's helped me so much. Like and along the way, just like you said, like you meet some just incredible people. So it's amazing how small the yoga community actually is, even though it's all over the world.
And so great to hear how it's helped you, a kind of physical health way. So I wanted to just say, so I can't remember exactly where and when it was now, but I came across some beautiful yoga pictures, and they were done by you. And I think it was part of your book that you've managed to crowdfund. And that's how we ended up connecting. And Grant and I were just saying before we started the interview, like it's a real interesting project that he's done, because it's such a point in time now, given how the world suddenly changed so dramatically this year. Grant, could you take us through a bit more about what is this project that I've alluded to, and how it came about and where that's taken you?
Yeah, so we, Erica Chen, my fiance, we started discussing this project a little over a year ago. And so it's just as you mentioned, it's called My Yoga, My City. And our goal from creating this book, we wanted to show the beauty and the inclusiveness that yoga cultivates, that it's nothing to take away from the social media, from the Instagram yoga, but it's something that I think about myself when, going back to when I was practicing, I wasn't on social media. I wasn't, I didn't look at that stuff, but I can imagine now if I saw some of the photos on Instagram, I'd be scared to practice. I'd be like, well, I can't, get into a one-arm handstand at the top of a cliff and have a smile on my face. And it was something that we wanted to find a way to show the beauty of those amazing athletes, those amazing yogis, but also show the yogi who comes to class every day, who sits in the back of class, who maybe talks to one person but has used yoga to just like me, it has allowed them to change their life if they, have some sort of, there's one woman in the book who, she can touch her toes. And it's something that, we wanted to show just how beautiful it is for a person who can do a very simple posture and then a more advanced, that it's still yoga. And so in coming up with that, we chose, New York City, because that's where we were living at the time. We wanted to show as many different people, showing the diverse community in front of different landmarks across the city, in Brooklyn, Queens, New York City, Manhattan. And so, it was a lofty goal that we chose 108. And I think I ended up taking photos with about 120 people. And, it really, once we did the Kickstarter, we saw that this idea, that people wanted to see this. And we actually, something I didn't mention, we partnered with a nonprofit yoga organization called Exhale to Inhale. A good friend of ours, Zoe LePage, who started this, that brings yoga to trauma-informed yoga to people who've been domestically and physically abused. It's just an amazing program, but 20% of the proceeds from all book sales go to them. So we've been able to donate some money to them, which has been wonderful. And they were, Zoe and the board of directors were a wonderful contact. That we have several members from the board that are in the book. But it was something that once we started, once we got the green light, we had a group of people who, teachers, friends who, we definitely wanted to get in the book. Then we sort of opened the rest of the spots up to nominations. And, we didn't get a ton of nominations. That I'm relatively unknown and don't have much of a social media presence, but, we pretty much took everyone who applied. And thankfully it was quite a diverse group.
Yeah.
But then I think,
don't you, gender and age and size and
right.
representation.
Right. That was so important that, once we started photographing and, got to a certain amount, we could be a little more picky as far as like, okay, we want to have a larger body type or, male, female, ethnicities and whatnot, that we actually started to reach out. We had a group of people who, we had looked up to from afar. And, like I had mentioned before, the yoga community, even though you think of New York City and this, this huge place, everyone is so connected. And I can't tell you how many times where I'd photograph someone and be like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And they send a text message or call, be like, okay, here's the info. And it's amazing that we were able to, we took photos with people such as Deepak Chopra and Sri Dharma Mitra, just an amazing group of people. And then, also at the same time, we shop with pretty much every yoga studio owner in New York City. And then just a group of students and teachers. And it really, it's amazing to think about the journey. I took photos for about 3 months. So it was an intense 3 months of, 108 photo shoots, especially because a lot of the people I didn't know. So it really, I remember one woman in particular, we were actually sitting next to each other on a park bench for about 15 minutes and didn't realize that we were taking photos with each other. So just like, wait a second, are you who I'm taking photos with? Just like, yeah.
But, and all that really resonates with me, because it's a bit like that doing these podcasts, because you feel like reach out to people and will they respond, and then suddenly they do, and they introduce you to other people, and suddenly there's this huge community that you're linked in with, and everybody's got a story to share, whether that is through a photograph, through an interview, through written, isn't it? It's amazing.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's amazing. With yoga, it really, yoga is for everyone. That it really, and that was what we really wanted to show. And the fact that we, from young to old, we tried to get every demographic, age, skill level, that, to really show what, what this practice is about. That I think it sometimes gets lost with, the rise of social media and apparel companies and whatnot, that it's, it can be tough to navigate, but it really, anyone can do it.
And I love the fact that your project, you named it My City, My Yoga, or My Yoga, My City.
My Yoga, My City, yes.
And volume 1 is New York City, which really opens it up for all the neighborhoods and all the amazing places around the world. But I guess at the moment with lockdown, that's not maybe quite as possible. Do you sort of have any other projects that you're now looking to explore from there, or what are you up to now you've moved to Arizona?
All sorts of things, and I feel like I'm constantly working all the time and don't sleep that much. But ultimately, before the lockdown, and hopefully once it's safe to do so, our goal is to have volume 2 in Los Angeles. Then we'll have a couple more cities like Seattle. We've thought about Austin, Texas.
I've already put in my pitch for Edinburgh or Glasgow.
And you put in your pitch, yes, we've got the pitch. but really covering the some bigger cities in the United States, and then hopefully again, who knows what's going to happen, but, we imagine, having several volumes where we're traveling around the world. And, something else that's important to us too is that each book will partner with a yoga nonprofit that's based in that city.
Yeah.
That, I think that it's so important, the act of giving and helping these there's so many amazing nonprofits.
Yeah.
But
and I just
yeah,
love how people bring yoga in their lives, and then they bring in other aspects or skills into their lives, and you think the two will never meet, and there you go, you're this perfect shining example where you've brought your different skills together for the good of the community in such a marvelous way.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. And yeah, hopefully, but anyways, I think I went off on one of my tangents, like I told you beforehand, but what I'm doing now, I think I had mentioned that I've worked in early childhood pretty much my entire life. So I'm back working as a preschool administrator, where my mom is the preschool director, and back with my mom again. But my goal in moving to New York City actually was to become the next Mr. Rogers, that I wanted to create children's content. And that's sort of the path that I'm going on right now, focusing more on the kids media. But at the same time, Erica and I are launching our own yoga company called House of Flow. That's going to be a live on demand, yoga videos, the photography. I'm going to be offering photography courses, video courses for yoga teachers. So it's going to be very, I think it's a lot of stuff, but I think it's going to go very, very well. So we're excited. We're excited for this new chapter.
Can I ask you, without giving away too many secrets, because as you know, social media is a big thing now, and even if you're not really into it, I think yoga teachers and professionals are having to some extent offer themselves in a social media friendly kind of way. Have you got sort of any tips, as I say, not giving too much away, that can help people just sort of get off the mark, or people that are like, oh God, I really don't want to put my face on something, but I also want to let people know I'm here and I offer yoga classes? What ways can they help themselves do that in the best way possible?
I am not the best person when it comes to social media. I will say that we're actually taking a crash course with a friend who's actually in the book, who focuses on Instagram growth and social media growth for the wellness and yoga community. But I think it's something that it really, I think that anyone can take a very nice yoga photo. That I think that you don't need to have a professional photographer like myself. That it's amazing what iPhones can do right now. That it's really like, and that's something that hopefully I'll be offering with our House of Flow, the sort of course. But I think it's really just it's almost overly saturated with so many yoga teachers because so many studios have closed. But you really have to put yourself out there, put yourself in those situations that, you're uncomfortable doing, that it's, just like us, like, I think I had posted on a Facebook group, and I never use Facebook and and it just led to us having this conversation that, I think it's that it really, I think this is the time where you can take those, the things that you were against, things that you were scared to do, and really, see what happens. Because, the worst thing is that, you post some photos, you have these offerings and it doesn't get enough, it doesn't get that many likes and you don't get that many people to sign up, but at least you're trying.
So tell me this, like the photos that you got in the book, because the ones I've seen look absolutely stunning. And what is it you look for? Is it like a certain background and then you bring the person in, or is it about the pose, or is it just depends what you're looking for? Like what do you see in your mind, or are you looking for that makes a good picture when you're taking one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think for the book, this was a challenge for me, that most of the photos I had taken up to that point, it was really focused on the yogi, that it was focused on the, creating a beautiful creating beautiful imagery, but, making sure, as far as the technical aspects, that everything is correct.
Mm-hmm.
With the book, it really was a focus on the landscape first. So whenever I went for a photo shoot, I'd always get there before the yogi, or at least most of the time. There's some yogis who get there. They're very, very on time. But I would get there, and I'd visualize what the best photo. I'd take photos of just whether it's a building, whether it's a backdrop. And then once I had that in mind, then it was setting up the person in the shop. That is something that I came to learn, unfortunately, further on in the process. That I look at the book and I'm just like, oh, I would have done this shot a little bit different. That it was amazing learning when you take photos of really tall buildings, to try to get that tall building completely in the photo. You're moving so much further away, but then you're bringing the yogi right up to you, so then you can keep in the background. And that's something I didn't know, that it was sort of trial by fire. But it was always landscape first, because that was the whole goal of this My Yoga, My City. And then it was the yoga that was the second part.
But it can be more tricky than you think. I mean, I still giggle at myself sometimes. I've taken this, what I think is going to be a great picture, and then when you look at it, there's like, a do not enter sign next to your butt or something, and it's just like, oh God, how did I not realize that? And it's so easy to do, isn't there? Like, I don't know, something coming out of your back of your head. And
yeah, I mean, that is the beauty of Photoshop that I will say. That Photoshop, that I can say that well. every photo, especially in New York, there's always people. Like unless it was a really early morning photo shoot, you'd see the original and then you'd see the final edit, and I'm getting rid of the people, and I'm all of this stuff that sometimes I couldn't get rid of the people, and sometimes we actually wanted to have the people in the photo. But it's Photoshop is a lifesaver. It's amazing what it's capable of.
Oh, that's brilliant. And Grant, tell me, what else would you like to share about anything about your yoga journey, or things that currently working on or working through at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the House of Flow, like we'll hopefully be launching that in December. And then with the book, like we still have many copies left. We're selling them, I think, for $29.99 on our website, myogamycity.com. And really, I think once life returns to this new normal, we're really hopeful, to have the second volume in Los Angeles, and really for people to, to be aware that, Erica and I exist, that we're creating these pieces of work, that, if anyone has anyone in mind who lives in Los Angeles, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a student, just to, to keep them in the back of their mind, where they would be, could be a wonderful addition to the next volume.
Oh, fabulous. And it's always good, I think, at this time when things are challenging, to have goals like this, so that at least it keeps you sort of looking forwards, moving forwards, isn't it? And thinking positively. And is Erica, is she teaching online as a yoga teacher at the moment?
So she's teaching online. So she teaches with Yoga Vida in New York still. So they've created their online, pretty much like every yoga studio has. She does some classes on her Instagram right now. She's at Erica Chen Yoga. And then once our House of Flow launches, pretty much all of her content will be on that site.
And you talked a lot about your work with children and media. Do you see any outlet there for like bringing yoga into that aspect of things that you're doing?
Yeah, actually. So I actually have a company called Yogi Land. It's
surprises.
I'm full of surprise. I'm all over the place. So it's called Yogi Land, YOGIE Land. And so I had started that about a year and a half ago. So it's a live music storytelling yoga program for children ages 6 months to 8 years old.
Oh,
So it really, it was, again, with everything that happened with the pandemic, I had to stop. I'm hopeful to, be starting that again soon. But it was sort of my take on kids yoga that I taught kids yoga, and it was always very difficult in the fact that there was so much emphasis on a 2-year-old trying to stay on the mat that I would, spend half the class trying to get a young child to sit, which is very difficult sometimes. So I wanted to create something that allowed for the child who wants to practice yoga, who loves music, who loves games, who loves puppets and storytelling, like to pretty much capture whatever their attention gravitates towards, to bring everyone there. So so this program, we were at several preschools before the pandemic started. We were starting to be all over New York City. So a friend of mine, he wrote all the original music, and I created a puppet that's one of my personalities, because I do voices and a weird skill set. But yogi, what's that?
Where is this puppet? Can you?
The puppet, unfortunately, is downstairs, but his name's Yogi the Dogi. So he's the host of the show, and it really, it's a fun little way for children to experience yoga, and also have a really good time and not have to constantly bring them back to, they can come when they want to.
Oh, that's great. That's so great. So I wanted to ask you, and you might need a few minutes here, so where can people go and find you for all these things? There's a few things you might want to mention.
There's a few things. So yes. So for the book, My Yoga My City, Instagram, and the website.
Is it .com, I think? Is that right?
.com, yes. Then I've got grandhenrymedia.com, which, I'm starting to expand my photography and video offerings to stuff outside of yoga, that the Grand Henry Media is now going to be doing a lot more than just yoga. I've got the houseofflow.co. We couldn't get the .com. So I'm not really sure what the extension is .co, but it actually sounds better. But so houseofflow.co, and that's, I think, our Instagram handle as well. I've got yogiland.com, and Yogiland is the Instagram on that one.
I hope you have a media manager.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and like I said, for someone who does not like social media, I'm lagging when it comes to posts and everything that needs to be done. But
sometimes less is more,
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's fabulous. So yeah, people know where to go and find you. And we also like to invite guests to share maybe a quote or something that's just inspiring them, maybe a meme or something. Is there anything that pops to mind for you at the moment?
Oh, that was a good question. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. I can't think of anything. I think you stumped me now.
Thanks.
I think you stumped me.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, it was such a pleasure. I'm so happy that we were able to connect, and I look forward to sending you the book on Monday.
Yes.
And so you can actually see it. But yeah, and hopefully we'll have a volume where you're at.
Well, just to say thank you so much. I know we've been talking for many months really, and lots of things have been happening, but we finally managed to link up, and it's been worth the wait. It's been really interesting and lovely finding out all the projects you're working on. So
thank you.
Much success, and we look forward to connecting again. Thank you very much, Grant. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Yoga, and we hope you feel inspired. You can find more of our free podcasts at www.voicesofyoga.com, and we are on all the main podcast platforms too. We are very open to comments and suggestions, so if you'd like to also leave us a review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. If you would like to know when the most recent podcast is going to be broadcast, you can sign up to our newsletter on the website and we will drop you an email with that recent update. Voices of Yoga is our passion project, and if you like what we're doing and you would like to support us, it would be very much appreciated. And you can do that through a very small donation on our website on the donation button if you feel so inclined. If you would like to collaborate with us in terms of sponsorship, advertising, or even suggest coming on and being a guest, then please drop us an email at voicesofyoga@mail.com. So thanks again, and we look forward to bringing you another inspiring yoga story next week. Namaste.